Thought he might be a movie star or something one day. I swear to God, that's true. Verdant, right? His old man and his mom both slept with their store-boughts and a glass of water by the bed. Molino said that Sullivan changed when they were in high school. He got tough and mean as a snake, but he developed a pretty good sense of humor for an Irish guy anyway. He leaned in close to the bar and lowered his voice. He killed a guy in 9th grade, named Nick Fratello. Fratello worked at the newspaper store with the bookies. He used to hassle Mikey all the time, break his balls strenuously. No reason. So Sully just killed him with a box cutter. That got the attention of the Mafia, of John Maggione in particular. John Maggione Sr. I'm talking about. That's when Sully started to hang around the social club in Bensonhurst. Nobody knew what he was doing exactly, not even me. But suddenly he had money in his pockets. 17, maybe 18 years old, he bought a Grand Am, a Pontiac Grand Am. Very hot wheels at that time. Maggione Jr. always hated Mike because he'd gotten the old man's respect. Molino looked from Sampson's face to mine, and he made a gesture like, "What else can I tell you? Can I go now?" "When was the last time you saw Michael Sullivan?" Sampson asked him. "Last time?" Molino sat back and made a big show of trying to remember. Then his hands started flapping around again. "I would say it was Kate Gargan's wedding in Bay Ridge, 6-7 years ago. That's my last recollection anyway. Of course, you guys probably have my life on audio and video, right?" "Could be, Mr. Molino. So where is Michael Sullivan now? The Christmas cards? Where were they sent from?" Molino shrugged and threw up his hands, as if he was getting a little exasperated with the conversation. "There were only a couple of cards, I think postmarked in New York, Manhattan. No return address, guys, so you tell me. Where is Sully these days?" "He's right here in Brooklyn, Mr. Molino," I said. "You saw him 2 nights ago at the Chesterfield Lounge on Flatbush Avenue." Then I showed him his picture, with Michael Sullivan. Molino shrugged and smiled. "No big deal. We'd caught him in a lie. He used to be my friend. He called, wanted to talk. What could I do, blow him off? Not a good idea. So why didn't you grab him then?" "Bad luck," I said. "The agents on surveillance had no idea what he looks like now. The baldy haircut, the 70s punk look. So now I have to ask you again. Where is Sully these days?" Chapter 94.
Michael Sullivan was breaking the time-honored customs and unwritten rules of the family, and he knew it, and he understood the consequences all too well. But they had started this foolishness, hadn't they? They'd come after him, and they'd done it in front of his kids. Now, he was going to finish it, or maybe he would die trying. Either way, it had been a hell of a ride for him. Hell of a ride. 10:30 on a Saturday morning, and he was driving a UPS truck that he'd hijacked less than 20 minutes earlier. First FedEx, now UPS, so at least he was an equal opportunity jacker. The driver was in back, trying his best to recover from a slit throat. There was a picture of his girlfriend or wife or whatever she was on the dash, and the lady was almost as ugly as the dying driver. The butcher couldn't have cared less about the incidental murder. He felt nothing for the stranger, and truthfully, everyone was a stranger to him, even his own family most of the time. "Hey, you okay back there?" he called over the rumbling, rattling noise of the truck. No answer. Nothing from the back. "Yeah, I thought so, buddy. Don't worry about it. The mail and whatnot must go through. Rain, snow, sleet, death, whatever." He pulled the big brown delivery truck up in front of a medium-sized ranch house in Roslyn. Then he grabbed a couple of bulky delivery boxes off the metal shelf behind the driver's seat. He headed to the front door, walking fast, hurrying like the boys in brown always do on TV, even whistling a happy tune. The butcher pressed the doorbell, waited, still whistling, playing the part perfectly, he thought. A man's voice came over the intercom. "What? Who's there? Who is it?" "UPS, package. Just leave it." "Need a signature, sir."
I said leave it, okay? Signature's not a problem. Leave the package. Bye-bye. Sorry, sir, I can't do that. Real sorry, just doing my job here.
Then nothing more over the intercom. 30 seconds went by. 45. Might need a plan B here. Finally, a very large man in a black Nike sweatsuit came to the door. He was physically impressive, which made sense since he'd once played football for the New York Jets and Miami Dolphins.
Are you hard of hearing? He asked. I told you to leave the package on the porch. Capiche?
No, sir, I'm Irish-American, actually. I just can't leave these valuable packages without a signature. The butcher handed over the electronic pad, and the big ex-footballer angrily scrawled a name with the marker. The butcher checked it. Paul Moscone, who just happened to be a mob soldier married to John Maggioni's little sister. This was so against the rules. But you know what? Were there really any rules anymore? In the mob, government, churches, the whole messed up society?
Nothing against you personally, said the butcher. Pop, pop, pop. You're dead, Paul Moscone. And the big boss is going to be really pissed at me. By the way, I used to be a Jets fan. Now I go for New England.
Then the butcher stooped down and slashed the dead man's face, over and over again with a scalpel. Then he cut his throat, crisscross, right on the Adam's apple. A woman popped her head into the living room, dark hair still in curlers, and she started to scream, "Polly, Polly, oh my God, oh, Polly, no, no, no!" The butcher did his best little bow for the distraught widow. "Say hello to your brother for me. He did this to you. Your big brother killed Polly, not me." He started to turn away, then spun around. "Hey, sorry for your loss." And he took another little bow.
Chapter 95. This could be it. The end of a long and winding road after Maria's murder. Sampson and I took the Long Island Expressway to the northern state, all the way out to the tip of Long Island. We followed Route 27 and finally found the village of Montauk, which until that moment was just a name I'd heard and occasionally read about. But this was where Michael Sullivan and his family were hiding out, according to Anthony Molino. Supposedly, they had just moved here today. We found the house after 20 minutes of searching unfamiliar back roads. When we arrived at the address we'd been given, two boys were tossing a bloated-looking football on a small patch of front lawn. Blonde, Irish-looking kids. Pretty good athletes, especially the littlest guy. The presence of kids could make this a lot more complicated for us, though. "You think he's staying out here?" Sampson asked as he turned off the engine. We were at least 100 yards away from the house, pretty much out of sight now, playing it safe. "Molino says he's been moving around a lot. Says he's here now for sure. The kids are the right age. There's an older boy, too, Michael Jr. I squinted to see better. Car in the driveway has Maryland plates. Probably not a coincidence there. Sullivan was supposed to be living somewhere in Maryland before he and his family made their latest run. Makes sense that he was close to D.C. Explains the rapes there. The pieces are starting to fall together. His kids haven't seen us yet. Hopefully Sullivan hasn't either. Let's keep it that way, John." We moved, and Sampson parked 2 streets away. Then we got shotguns and pistols out of the trunk. We hiked into the woods behind a row of modest homes, though still with a view of the ocean. The place where the Sullivans were staying was dark inside, and we hadn't spotted anybody else so far. No Caitlin Sullivan, no Michael Sullivan, or if they were in the house, they were staying back from the windows. That made sense. Plus, I knew that Sullivan was a good shot with a rifle. I sat down with my back against a tree, huddled against the cold with a rifle in my lap. I started thinking through the problem of taking down Sullivan without harming his family. For one thing, could it be done? After a while, I began to think about Maria again. Was I finally close to clearing her murder? I didn't know for sure, but it felt like it. Or was that just wishful thinking? I took out my wallet and slid out an old picture from a plastic sleeve. I still missed her every day. Maria would always be 30 years old in my mind, wouldn't she? Such a waste of life. But now she'd brought me here, hadn't she? Why else would Samson and I have come alone to get the butcher? Because we didn't want anybody to know what we were going to do with him. Chapter 96.
The butcher was seeing red, and that usually wasn't good for the world's population numbers. In fact, he was getting more pissed off by the minute. Make that by the second. Damn it. He hated John Maggioni. Distractions helped some. The old neighborhood wasn't much like Sullivan remembered it. He hadn't liked it then, and he cared for it even less now. Feeling a little bit of déjà vu, he followed Avenue P, then took a left onto Bay Parkway. As far as he knew, this general area was still the main shopping hub of Bensonhurst. Block after block of red brick buildings with stores on the ground level, greaseball restaurants, bakeries, delis, greaseball everything. Some things never changed. He was flashing images of his father's shop again. Everything was always gleaming white. The freezer with its white enameled door, inside the freezer, hooks with hanging quarters of beef, bulbs in metal cages along the ceiling, knives, cleavers, and saws everywhere. His father standing there with his hand under his apron, waiting for his son to blow him. He made a right at 81st Street, and there it was. Not the old butcher shop. Something even better. Revenge. A dish best served steaming, piping hot. He spotted Maggioni's Lincoln parked in the rear lot of the social club, license ACF 3069. He was pretty sure it was Junior's car anyway. Mistake? But whose mistake? He wondered as he continued up 81st Street. Was Junior such an arrogant bastard that he could just come and go when he liked? Was it possible that he had no fear of the butcher? No respect? Not even now? Or had he set a trap for him? Maybe it was a little of both, arrogance and deception. Hallmarks of the world we live in. Sullivan stopped at a Dunkin' Donuts at the intersection of New Utrecht and 86th. He had some black coffee and a sesame bagel that was too doughy and bland. Maybe this kind of shit food played somewhere in Middle America, but a half-assed bagel had no place being sold in Brooklyn. Anyway, he sat at a table watching the car lights pass back and forth out on New Utrecht, and he was thinking that he wanted to walk into the club on 81st Street and start blasting. But that wasn't any kind of plan. It was just a nice, violent fantasy for the moment. Of course, he had a real plan in mind. Junior Maggioni was a dead man now, and probably worse than that. Sullivan smiled at the thought, then checked to make sure that nobody was watching, thinking he was a crazy person. They weren't. He was. Good deal. He took another sip. Actually, the Dunkin' coffee wasn't half bad, but the bagel was the worst.
Chapter 97.
20 minutes later, he was in position. Now, here was the funny thing. He'd done the same kind of commando raid when he was just a kid. He and Jimmy Hatz and Tony Molino had climbed a rickety fire escape on 78th, then sprinted over the tar-papered rooftops to a building near the social club. In broad daylight. No fear. They were dropping in on a girl Tony knew in the building attached to the social club. The chick's name was Annette Bucci. Annette was a hot little Italian number who used to put out for her boyfriends when they were all of 13, 14 years old. They'd watch Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley like the idiots they were, smoke cigarettes and weed, drink her father's vodka, screw their little brains out. Nobody had to use a rubber because Annette said she couldn't have babies, which made the three boys the luckiest bastards in the neighborhood that summer. Anyway, this present escapade was a lot easier, since it was nighttime and the moon was almost full. Of course, he wasn't here to screw Annette Bucci either. No, he had very serious business with Junior Maggioni. unfinished business that probably went all the way back to Maggione Sr., who had bumped